Hello everybody, this is the Cult of Celebrity tag that I was tagged in by MJ at Reading This Life, originally created by Gareth at Book Songs and Other Magic. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 prompts with props. So the first question is, have you met an author you liked? Yes. And I think this was the author that MJ said should be quite scared tonight. So anyway, mine's Clive Barker. So I met Clive Barker in Cumbria, actually, which is quite a rare thing, about 11, 12 years ago. And he had an art exhibition on in a small gallery in Carlisle, and it was, he's a really good artist as well, actually. And I got to sit with him for maybe 10, 15 minutes with other people I went with and had a small conversation with him, and turns out I liked his favourite painting was my favourite painting, because he asked us what was your favourite out of the show, and I said that one, and he said mine too, and had a good conversation about his childhood and stuff. But the day after, and I forgot to get a prop, but the day after we went back, I think it was around dinner time, we was doing a signing session. Now this isn't my original copy of Cabal, to film I love as well, Nightbreed. It's flawed, but I just love the film in all its versions. My original paperback copy of Cabal I bought on a Boys Brigade trip in a motorway service station, so probably not the thing you should be reading on a Christian Boy Scout trip, but I was that kind of person. But anyway, I bought this one when I met him and he signed it there. Don't know which way that's up actually. Yeah. And I also took along my copy of Imagica, which is an absolute mammoth, but I think I flew through this in about a week because I couldn't put it down. The only one I wish I had taken was Wave World, and he signed that one for it. And 2 seconds, what I also took was my old Anchor Bay DVD box set of Hellraiser 1, 2 and 3, so it's in the puzzle box. All the extras, first 3 films, and he signed that on the top. I don't know if you can see with the glare. Just, yeah. So MJ, no need to be scared of Clive Barker, he's really nice. Do I seek out signed copies of books? Yes, because that's the kind of geeky idiot I am. But specific authors, I think. A book that meant a lot to us growing up, and I met one of my best friends because I spied us reading it at school when we were on, like, monitoring outside GCSE exams. So we sat outside, they just pulled us out of class and said, you have to sit out there and make sure nobody comes in and out. Not that they would, I don't think. But we were like security at like 13. And I'm built like a jockey's whip, as I say, so no, I'd just go, yeah, if you want to go out, go out. But anyway, I was reading this book outside, and he says, oh. And it was a book that meant a lot to us because it's an autobiography, but it meant, I've been into film since I was a kid, like a really young kid. And discovering this book in my local bookshop in the town I've just moved to, actually, in Cockermouth, and reading it because I like some of his films. And I remember Dad saying he'd seen one of his films being filmed in Keswick, which is a town up from me in the Lake District, and it was Ken Russell's autobiography, A British Picture. But it meant a lot because Ken Russell lived in Borrowdale, which is 10, 12 miles away from us, near Keswick, and he filmed a lot of films there. Parts of the Devils were filmed there, Tommy, a lot of his 70s films were filmed there, and it just was like, well, you can't live in Cumbria and be a film director. I mean, Ken Russell isn't Cumbrian, he was from Southampton, born in Southampton. But yeah, so I met my best friend because he saw us reading this, but I think it was literally 2-3 months before Ken Russell died. I met him at a local film festival. He came to Keswick again and showed the Devils, the cut version, obviously, because Warner Brothers will not release the uncut version, even though Channel 4 showed it. And the footage exists and it's all been put back in. Warner Brothers will not release it because apparently it's, you know, the devil lives in that film, whatever. But yeah, Ken Russell signed it there, and I mean he was like 86 at the time, so it's a pretty scrawly handshake. And it was funny because I think this is the first edition of his autobiography. I signed it twice actually. 89 published, this edition published 90, so second paperback, but in it he's dedicated to Hugh Weldon, who started him off in Monitor, which was an arts programme in the 60s on the BBC. And apparently when I said to him, he said, I've only signed it because it's the first edition with Hugh Weldon. If it was signed to Melvyn Bragg, who was a Cumbrian broadcaster, very well known in England. I think he wrote the script for Ken Russell's The Musical as well, he did. But if it was dedicated to Melvyn Bragg, he said that was a mistake. So I don't know what went on there. Yeah, and speaking of seeking outside out books, an author I'd wanted, probably one of my favourite fiction authors of all time, and I think probably my favourite novel of the 20th century, well, the latter half of the 20th century. This isn't that novel, but I finally got a signed copy because I was in the local bookshop here again one day, so before my daughter was born, so I'm going to say 18, 19 years ago, and they had paperback copies signed, and at the time I was just like, oh, I'd read an absolute chunk of his work, and I was just like, nah, I'll come back next week and get it. Of course, they're all gone. So I finally got hold of, about 3 years ago, a signed John le Carré. So this was one of his last novels. I think he's third to last. So there's this one, The Agent Running in the Field, and his very last one, which was posthumously published, Silver Hue. But yeah, so I finally got John le Carré signed, which had been on my wish list for, yeah, I'll say 18, 20 years. And I mean, I would love earlier le Carré signed. I would love a signed copy of Tinker Tailor, which is my favourite novel of all time. But since he died 2 years ago coming up, prices have just gone through the roof. An author you love, you think you wouldn't like personally? I've thought long and hard about this one. I don't know, I think there's a lot of authors whose politics I definitely don't agree with, but I wouldn't say I love them. Like Frederick Forsyth, I suppose I used to love as a kid, and I read his autobiography on Kindle, I think this time last year, and his politics are atrocious. Well, to me they are, because I'm absolute opposite of what his politics are. I can't say I've read Frederick Forsyth since I was a teenager, to be honest with you. So yeah, I don't think there's an author I love that I wouldn't like personally. Not anybody I've read recently anyway, or anybody I'm interested in at the moment. Are you personally interested in an author's personality, lifestyle and opinions? Yes. I read autobiographies of authors, I read autobiographies of filmmakers, I read articles and stuff. I know their opinion pieces mostly. But yeah, I suppose I'm mostly interested in reading like stuff, autobiographies and such, to see their influences. Lifestyle, definitely with film stars and directors. I mean, I've got an Oliver Reed biography that's just outrageous, and you just think, how did he even wake up in the morning? I've got there's another book called Hellraisers by, I can't remember his first name, Sellers. I think book time is Elvis is ready, and it's the old Hellraisers. So it's Oliver Reed, Peter O'Toole, Albert Finney, and some of the stories in there you just go, how did you survive? How did you even wake up in the morning and go and do a show or a film? I've got Richard Burton's diaries as well, which when you read them, you're like, how did you even write a diary, for one? And apparently he had a massive library when he died. So yeah, I'm pretty interested in their opinions and personalities. I think some of it's fascinating, especially like, as I say, filmmakers and actors that have long gone. Not that it's an awesome accurate account, but I think two of my favourite autobiographies are by Michael Powell, who made some of Britain's greatest films, Life and Death of Colonel Blimp, The Red Shoes, and it's just fascinating because he was involved in early days in silent cinema, but then developed as a filmmaker. Obviously met Emmerich Pressburger, who was the Archers, was Emmerich Pressburger and Michael Powell, and Jack Cardiff became their cinematographer of choice with Black Narcissus and Red Shoes. And it's just that it tells you about the whole development of cinema in the early years to through the 40s. And then I think his second autobiography, which I managed to get a cheap copy of because it was quite expensive for a while, it's like his wilderness years, because he made a film called Peep and Tom in 1962, and it ruined his career because he was apparently sick, violent, banned his sick filth, like the old video nasty these days. And it's a terrific film. I would say it's the first slasher film, to be honest with you. I would definitely say it's the first slasher film, but that's just my opinion. A dead author you would have liked to have met? John le Carré again, definitely. But one of the most important, and I think this was a really important book for me because my mum bought us it, and I think this is a book club edition. This is the actual edition she bought us. It says quality paperbacks direct, so I think it must have been part of a book club or cheap. Yeah, a cheap reprint. But I don't think it's even got an edition. Published 1993 by QPD with arrangement by Little Brown and Company, so quality paperbacks direct. I seem to remember that name, but I can't remember what they were. But yeah, it's actually got no... Oh, it says reprinted in 1993 3 times, and it's quite a weird size, this actually. But yeah, Mum bought us this when I was 13, and it's probably the most... She didn't know what I was buying us, but it's Ian Banks' Complicity, and I would have loved to meet Ian Banks, because I think when I read, I think it was one of his last books shortly before he died, Raw Spirit, about his tour around Scotland looking for different whiskey distilleries. It's sort of like semi-autobiographical as well. His politics and the books he read and the music he listened to just chimed with us. But this was a really important book. I say 13 years old, and it's, as I say, my mum definitely didn't know what she was buying us, because it's full of sex and drugs and absolutely insanely violent killings and a conspiracy theory. Well, it doesn't turn out to be a conspiracy theory. The film's quite good as well. I also wanted to make this in a film when I was growing up, when I was like 16, 17, but the beat us to it. But yeah, Ian Banks I would have loved to have met. And surprisingly, I mean, I've read most of his fiction stuff. I've only tried one of his science fiction books, and I like science fiction, love science fiction, but I couldn't get on with it. Don't know why. I must go back to it. An author still alive you would like to meet? Alan Moore. I've collected Alan Moore for 20 plus years, and that means like comics, his fiction. I mean, even though he's only got two novels. Voice of the Fire, his first one, which I read 20 odd years ago, and Jerusalem, which is still sitting on the shelf in the bedroom, taunting me because I know it's going to take a long time to read, and I know his prose style from the first novel, which was really, really difficult. But then again, his first novel, Voice of the Fire, was going from a 1 area mile patch of Northampton. So I think Jerusalem's all about Northampton as well. His hometown, where he's never moved from, still lives in the same house he grew up in. But Voice of the Fire is set in a square mile, and it goes from Stone Age man right up to the, I want to say, 50s or 60s, and then I think he becomes a character at the end of it. But it's only a slim novel, but it really took some reading, especially after just being used to reading Watchmen, From Hell, V for Vendetta, you know, and that's all comic language and quite easy to read, but obviously skillful as hell. But I've also got all of these, and I'm interested in these. He's the person that got me interested in the cult, really. I mean, a lot of my friends at school were like, I suppose, listening to gothic bands at the time and into like, oh, have you heard about Alistair Crowley? You know, yeah. But it's Alan Moore, I think, that got me interested in that esoteric side of occultism. And I can remember one thing he said was, a grimoire is just another word for grammar. It's an old English word for grammar, so it's a grammar, magic through words, which he does. He writes and creates new worlds. Really looking forward to his collection of short stories, by the way, which I've missed out on a signed edition of. God damn it. But yeah, I've even got stuff like, got a massive box up there, but I've got all these CDs, his spoken word. He calls them shamanisms or workings. So they're like, yeah, a cult, but it's psychogeography, and you know, they're all filmed in, well, recorded in one specific building, apart from his first one, The Birth Call, which was about finding his birth call imprinted on a cotton cloth in his grandma's cupboard. So a birth call is like a call that sometimes covers a baby when it comes out, and apparently it was good luck or old folky tradition to, like, once a baby was born, put a towel or cotton over its face and take the call off and save it as good luck, as a good omen. So his first CD was called that. I mean, I think these were late. I'm going to go off on one about Alan Moore now, aren't I? Late 90s anyway, but part of the Bauhaus and stuff, done the backing music for them. But yeah, Alan Moore, I'd love to sit down and have a proper conversation with Alan Moore, because he got me interested in all sorts of stuff, and I just think he's one of the greatest living writers that we've got in Britain, to be honest with you. So that's it. Thanks, Gareth, for creating the tag. The Berg Songs and Other Magic, and thanks MJ for tagging us. I know it's not Tag Tuesday, I know I'm late, and I know Roy at Yard of Books has tagged us in another tag, which is really taking something about Roy, so I'll get back to you. But anyway, thanks for watching, thanks for listening to me rambling. Thank you.